I want to respond to Mr1001nights thoughtful video, Mutual Aid and Sexuality. He begins by quoting Emma Goldman, in which Emma Goldman basically argues that sexuality is inherent to us and morality is grafted onto us. I love Emma Goldman. But one hopes that Goldman meant that sexual morality was grafted onto us, because if she meant that morality per se was grafted onto us, then her collectivist anarchism would lack a compelling moral foundation. Mr. 1001 Nights tells us that sexuality is an amoral replication strategy. Yet he nevertheless indicates that there was a recent study which showed that we do have a, quote, wired unconscious moral instinct, unquote, an instinct that distinguishes between right and wrong, and one that tends to elicit certain emotions. What those emotions are, Mr. 1001 Nights does not tell us. Nevertheless, Mr. 1001 Nights tells us that in his view, nature may have grafted on this moral instinct as an accessory. I thought that was a fascinating concept, that evolution accessorizes. Mr. 1001 Nights assures us that our sexuality exists at a more fundamental level and therefore needs to maintain its, and I'm quoting, flexibility in relation to other mental functions. What these other mental functions are, Mr. 1001 Nights does not tell us. I suspect, however, that he means our instinctual moral mental functions. No matter. What intrigues me is the tacit assumption that Mr. 1001 Nights makes, that because sexuality antedates the human moral instinct, it therefore must have existential and valuational priority over the moral instinct. He seems to be suggesting that the amoral nature of human sexuality be left unmitigated by our human moral instincts. In fact, I asked Mr. 1001 Nights in a question if that's exactly what he meant, and I'm still waiting an answer, although my question was quite recent. Maybe he hasn't got around to it yet. My question is why? Why should our human sexuality be unmitigated by our human moral instincts? Merely because our human sexual instinct is evolutionarily prior to our moral instinct? Why should we assume that that which appears temporally prior is more worthy of our ascension than that which appears temporally later? That's a glaring assumption. Is Mr. 1001 Nights perhaps assuming that our instinct of human sexuality has more force, more drive than our instinct for human morality? Is that really true, though? Excepting perhaps sociopaths, we make multitudinously more moral decisions than decisions to engage in sexual behavior. Our life is rife with making moral decisions. Morality is virtually omnipresent for us. Moreover, as Mr. 1001 Nights concedes, our moral instincts tend to elicit certain emotions. My question is, do those emotions really possess less force than our sexual drive? I used to think so when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I think less of that assumption. Are we really expected to believe that the felt violation of trust in a monogamous sexual relationship has less force than the momentary desire to get it on with someone? I'm not sure that because we don't see moral instincts operating with much force elsewhere in the animal kingdom, that we are somehow entitled to conclude that they don't operate with much force in us. Such a conclusion would be a glaring non sequitur. Thanks.